Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Morgan James book launch. My name's Jim Howard. I'm the publisher for Morgan James, and today we've got another incredible author to introduce you to. Today, I'm excited to talk with Drew Charles, and Drew is the author of After Party: Finding the Path to Sobriety. Drew, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor.
We're excited. We're excited. And what an amazing book, right? Just an incredible topic, and one that I know you dug in deep with, and really share your story and share um, what people can use on their own journey. So what inspired you to write After Party?
So in about 2019, I'd come home from doing some big touring with a band I was playing in at the time. I was drinking a lot, obviously, and living the kind of rock and roll lifestyle. I just found that as I was getting older, I was coping more and more with stress, anxiety, anything really, with drinking, and it sort of went from being a kind of fun partying kind of type arrangement to very quickly being habitual and daily drinking. So in about 2019, I decided that I needed to have a stint of sobriety,
Mm.
and the only way I could kind of deal with it and kind of go deep into the process of getting sober was to start writing about it. And so I basically journaled daily and shared it with a sober group that I was, a private Facebook group that I was on. And yeah, I kept, the more I wrote, the more I kind of felt like writing. And I shared it, and people were saying, this is great, you should put it into a book. So I decided to, after about 6 months of doing that, I decided to start collecting some of the posts and start documenting with that as the kind of skeleton. So that was really the inspiration to start, was really to work out my own issues in sort of real time. But the more I wrote, the more I shared, the more I realized that the struggles I was going through were being felt by a lot of people all around the world, and so I felt that maybe my story was not so different to many others, and that was definitely the case. So I thought, if I can get this into book form, I can hopefully help people realize that these struggles that feel very isolating at the time actually aren't.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You touched on a couple of things that I think are really important, and that is that sometimes we start something, whatever it is, in this case, drinking or whatever, but we start those journeys and it's all safe. It's just a little fun, and then it gets a little deeper, and then it gets a little deeper, and before we know it, it's kind of taken over, and that's where we find ourselves hard. And it's interesting that sometimes when we get in those spots, we feel like we're all alone, like there's no one there to reach out to, or no one's going to understand, or no one's going to be able to help. And you were able to pull yourself out of that and document it. And I can tell you, this is one of the greatest things for me working with authors, is that when authors share their stories, their real stories in authentic ways, that's how we can show that world who's hurting that, hey, you're not alone, you're not the only one. And you did that with your book, and it's so well done. I know that people who read it, who are either going through struggles of their own or know someone who's going through a struggle, this is a great book to let that person sort of find out that, hey, I'm not alone. There is other people who have gone through this, and there's someone else that can give insight to the struggles that I'm dealing with, and give hope that they can overcome it as well. And you've done that beautifully in your book. So
Yeah, thank you.
for me, I always say this to authors who share their stories, and I mean it. Thank you for being willing to open up and share your story with the world that can use that story to help them on their own journey. I think that's one of the maybe most important things that we can do with our experiences, and you've done that.
Definitely. And I knew I was it was terrifying too, like it didn't come easy. So, I've spent many hours, worrying about this, and how it's terrifying, and you're on the right track if you're terrified, I think. So you're about to do
Exactly.
something good if you're really scared.
Yeah, the more scared you are, the bigger the reward's going to be. And
I
do
hope
you
so.
have a copy of the book you can show?
Yes, I do. So that's it
Yeah,
there.
there it is. Awesome. So, just an incredible cover, great feeling when you see it and hold it. So, well done. So, Drew, what does your voice add, to the current world that we live in, where all the quit lit and the addiction self help and all the stuff that we see out there now? What does your voice add to that?
Yeah, I read a lot of Quit Lit. Obviously, I used it quite a lot, and I really enjoyed it, and I found it really helpful to myself personally.
Mm,
One thing that I felt was a little bit missing in the genre was a kind of more like in real time, kind of uh, a documentation of that critical first year. Because in the
mm,
first year of sobriety, you go through, it's like the year of firsts. First birthday, sober, first Christmas sober, first New Year's sober, all these events, life events that you have to go through for the first time often. So I felt like in the kind of quit lit genre, there was a lot of amazing books, but it was quite often, looking further back from, 10 years sober or 5 years sober. But what I really wanted to do was document that critical first year and in a kind of more immediate frame of mind, so that you could really feel the anguish and the anxieties of that first year. Mostly because of my experience with my sober group, that so many people were right in it. That
mm.
I was experiencing those first with them. So I wanted a book that could kind of tap into that and be right in the thick of it with people, so that they could feel like it was helping them in that kind of more immediate sort of frame, which is obviously a huge risk, because you're coming at it not from 10 years of sobriety, you're coming at it from 1 year. So but that was kind of my thinking around the book, and why I wanted to or what I feel it adds to the genre
Yeah.
uniquely.
Yeah, something real, something authentic, and something in the moment. I think that that's
Mm,
powerful. Very
yeah.
powerful.
And I think it can be and I look back on this, I'm nearly 3 years sober now, and I look back on this book, and I wouldn't write the same book now. I would write a different book. I've had a few more
Yeah.
years under my belt. It's not so immediate. Some of the sort of rawness and emotional pain that's in there would maybe not feel as stark
Yeah.
now looking backwards. So I wanted to really capture that kind of feeling of, this is really hard, and it's really
Yeah.
emotional at the time. So yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Um, did you find that that was a challenge? Did you have challenges, or when you were writing this, did you face those challenges?
Absolutely. I think the biggest challenge I faced was probably the fear of this is some of the most personal information I've got about myself, and
Yeah.
um, I realized at one point that I'm going to share this with the world, and whoever wants to read it can read it, and it's publicly available. So that was probably the biggest challenge that I had to overcome. Was one, telling my family all about this stuff that I'd hidden
Yeah.
for so many years. Sharing it with my wife and friends and all that. That was kind of the most scary and the most challenging part. But I also, in those challenges, you get a lot of support from places where you may not feel like it's going to come from, and in the end, everyone's been very supportive. So that sort of helped me overcome that challenge, and now I feel like I can release it, and hopefully, um, it can do some good.
Yeah, and it will. There is no question. I'm so proud of this book, and thankful to be a part of the team with you. And I know everyone watching today should look at this and look at getting a copy of this book, because here's one thing that we all know, right? You may be watching this right now and saying, "Hey, I don't have an addiction issue," but it doesn't have to just be alcohol, right? It can be anything that can overtake your life that you allow to steal away from your freedom, or to overpower what other important things you have going on. And I guarantee you, if this is not for you, someone in your life, a friend, a family member, a coworker, who battles with addiction. It is a very, very powerful thing right now, and we see a lot of it in today's society. So this is definitely a book that I would say everyone watching this right now should get a copy of this book, read it, because it's not just going to give you the insight to be able to help yourself if you're not on this journey, but it's going to show you what people who actually battle with addiction go through. Because as Drew said, it's real, it's raw, it's that capturing of the first year, which is a lot of times and maybe most times the hardest thing to accomplish. And this is just very, very powerful tool. So Drew, thank you for sharing your story. I know you said, as you said, it was fearful, but I do know for a fact that someone's going to pick this book up and it's going to make a huge difference because they're going to be able to say, I'm not alone. And that's powerful.
No, thanks, Jim. That was my goal with it, and I hope also the other thing I tried to do with the book is to make it, a, hopefully a good story. So even if you're not someone that struggles with alcohol or drugs per se, that you still might read it and be hopefully a bit captivated. That was always my intention. So never know if it's going to work,
Well,
but
you did it well. You did it well, sir. It's
thank
it's
you.
a wonderful book. So, Drew, I know people are watching us today, and they're going to want to know more. They're going to want to get connected and find out, more about the book or more about your journey and what you're doing now. As you said, 3 years into this journey. So, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
The best way to connect is probably online because we're all in different parts of the world and under different restrictions. So my website's just drewcharles.net, and that's got links to all my socials. But if you're on Facebook, it's just facebook.com/Drew Charles, and my Instagram handle is Drew Charles AF. Standing for alcohol free. So not to be
Awesome.
confused with the other AF.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Well, Drew, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. I'm excited to see what happens as this book gets into the hands of people that need it most.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thanks so much for all your support along the way. It's been couldn't have done it without you guys and the team. So thank you.
Uh, Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. And guys out there watching, you can get a copy of After Party anywhere books are sold. So now's the time to go grab a copy, whether it's online or in your favorite bookstore, and get a copy of this book for yourself to read and prepare yourself. But also think about the people in your life that you know that may be struggling with issues of addiction, and grab a copy for them just to let them know that they're not alone and that there is hope on this path to sobriety. And Drew's book is a perfect example of that, as it documents that first year of his journey, After Party, finding the path to sobriety. So, Drew, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jim. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for watching. We look forward to seeing you on our next one.